So if you've looked into the GitHub repo, which I very much doubt anyone knew there was one, there's one for all the code, and it's been up since the beginning of the project. It doesn't contain any of the electronics. It doesn't contain any of the mechanics. It's just the code for this specific board. Now, that's great. This past week, I've been implementing a bit of cleanup here and there, but primarily I've started implementing wired buttons. Why would I be implementing wired buttons on a wireless derailleur system? Well, my original goal was to use the wireless ones as supplements, so satellite shifters or TT-styled shifters or something like that. The wired ones would be the primary, and I could get rid of them completely or not. The reasoning is wireless is an innovation in the shifting world. It's not. Chasing wireless is purely a product for original equipment manufacturers, so bike manufacturers, so that they can save money on assembly time and not have to buy a bunch of various different lengths of specialized expensive wires, or for companies to have fully attached wires that they have to tuck in and route internally. There's a lot of labor trying to route cables through a bike, and frankly, if they could do wireless brakes, they probably would, but we all make fun of that. So I still want a wired, an ability to run a wired system, because it's going to be faster, it's going to be interference free, and I can implement a bunch of features that become a little more difficult with other wireless button systems. It just means I have to add a lot more features to the Bluetooth side, and I can delay doing that without having to figure out that system. So I can make a new interface or something, or new shifters or whatever, later by having the wired system. So the other thing that I've been looking at is sometime over Christmas, I got batteries that I'll say are candidates. High current lithium high voltage cells, 3S, and they have an XT30 style connector, which is great. My boards don't. In fact, my boards don't actually match the form factor I end up choosing for the actual circuit board for the EPX project. And I've thought, I'd mentioned before, maybe make an adapter board. I'm starting to lean towards going to make a new board that matches perfectly, so I can get rid of the EEPROM that I don't need after I figured out about this SBS thing. And I'm going to make it the right physical size so that I can have an XT30 style connector. So basically, someone can take the battery, plug in the XT30, plug in the little JST, and that's it. Everything else will be done. And then it'll just all slide into a housing. The other side of this is I made the design with a lot of 0402, and pick and place over here, well, it took a lot to get it to do 0402, and it can do it, but every time I want to run 0402, the small, they're basically 1 millimeter by 0.5 millimeter, I think. Very small chips versus 0805s, about 2 by 1. You know, if I was going to production and I wasn't using my own pick and place to do some low volume builds, it'd be fine. But I think I want to move back and take away all the options I built it so it could be 2S, 3S, 4S, so it could be used for other projects and stuff. And that's great, and I'll still have them, but it's not helping the form factor here. So I want to make a little battery housing, slides in, a couple of plugs, close it up with some screws or something, and done. So on the screen now is a kind of a loose list of what I think I need to do to make this complete. And I think some things will be added. I doubt anything will actually be taken off. But what's the minimum viable product here? Well, since I have the buttons implemented, I need to implement mainly a way of doing all the standard setup. So with Campagnolo, you normally would hold both the mode buttons, and that was called zero setting. So it would go into mode to zero set. You would find gear 2, and then you would find gear 10, and then it would calculate all the gears in between. I need to implement that, but now I don't have 2 mode buttons to activate. I only have 1. With the normal EPS system, you would hold the mode button and you would enter trim. And then all those gears, all the way up, it would take them, and as you use the paddles and the thumb lever, it would shift them all one way or all the other way. I do recall that professionals and for the Peloton, there was special firmware for individual trim adjusts that they could use. And so you could adjust individual derailleur gears, or individual gears for the derailleur. You trim an individual gear. And for me, that's kind of a part of the minimum viable here. The reason for that is, while I'm trying to set it up for Campagnolo, I have 11-speed Campagnolo, 11-speed Shimano stuff, 10-speed SRAM and Shimano stuff kicking around, which means I can, when I do multi-speed setups, and yes, I will say again, it's designed so that right now you just type a number. How many gears do you have? 8, 9, 2? And that's basically, the 2 means front derailleur. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, theoretically 13, but only Ecker can do that, and this derailleur would never support how wide those cassettes are. But basically, I want that individual trim because if someone wants to use this on a different type of cassette, it would be good for them to be able to go in an advanced way and adjust that. But I've only got 3 buttons. So I actually have a pin for a 4th button, and I'm thinking about using it, putting a button on the derailleur. But I have to figure all that out, and that's actually kind of complicated. So actually, if you've got ideas for what way you can hold, requirements, no double click. Double click causes shifting delays. So I can implement it on the mode button. I don't want to because I just ripped that all out. But mainly I've got long presses, but long presses on shifting is, shift, 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 shift. So I've got long presses on mode, and I want it to be intuitive. And I'm finding that really hard. The other thing that I have to implement is sleep. It just sits there eating power. So I've got the derailleur will turn off the motor after it's there for a few seconds. Great. That needs some cleaning on the code, but no big deal. It will be workable in its current state, but I need to kind of take care of the full current consumption. I haven't done a full system measurement as it's operating, and I need to make sure that the whole system goes to sleep so it just won't sit there eating the battery. And yeah, maybe it takes 20 or 30 or 40 hours just sitting there to eat up the battery, maybe a few days or a couple of weeks. That's still no good. It needs to be able to sit there for months. So need to implement that as well. And there's an accelerometer on there, so that's not a big deal. It's just I have to take the code from another project I did many years ago, make sure it's up to snuff, and make sure that everything that is now enabled is being shut off when it goes to sleep. The final thing is I made a mistake with how I laid out the saving flash memory. So you have to save all your gear settings to the flash memory on the microcontroller. You don't want to be resaving large amounts of data over and over and over again. You certainly can, and that's how it's currently set up, but I'm setting it up now. I'm starting to break apart things like the PID gains, where the gears are. I'm not sure where stats goes yet, like how many gear shifts, but the current angle, the number of rotations, and the gear, or the number of rotations and the gear. Those are the 2 things that really have to be saved very often, because all it takes is, you've gone through a bunch of shifts and you pull the battery. If it didn't save until 10 shifts ago and it fires up, it needs to know the rotations. And because it's only a relative, it's absolute within 360 degrees of rotation, but it's only relative to the number of turns. So you have to keep count of the turns. So if you shift it to gear 10 from gear 2 when the last save was and you pull the battery, all your gears are messed up. And Campagnolo's dealt with this for years. You just have to save it really quickly, but the smaller you can make that, and the larger the flash area you can give, so you can write. When you write the good data, it destroys the bad data. It just writes over it. You write the good, and you keep. And then the bigger chunk of memory you can do that in, the better. So if you have all those gains and all those positions, you got this chunk of data, and now you're having to write chunk. It's not very good. So you want to keep that amount small, so I have to have 2 files that are now kind of kicking around. And if I can do those things in the next few months, then I can get it on the bike trainer before it's outdoor ride time, and I can start looking at fixing the rest of it while I can ride the bikes out in the real world. Obviously do one bike first, because you never know when something will go wrong and you have your derailleur go right into your spokes or something. I mentioned at the beginning of the video why I'm more motivated now. Well, I've got 2 main road bikes. My old 1984 wheelier that does have an EPS system with some Potenza parts, and yeah, it's a bit of a mixed bag, but I absolutely love it, and I love the feel of it and how smooth it is. Threaded bottom brackets. I'm looking at it now, my Trek bike. I barely remember. Yeah, it's an Imonda. It replaced my Madone before Madone became the Aero bikes. So I had a mishap with that and lost a derailleur and a chainstay. Wasn't great. So my wheelier has had a lot of the EPS parts on it were all bought used off of eBay. The problem with it is its battery was well used beforehand, and it quickly developed issues, and I've had to keep it charged every few weeks. Over the winter time, it can be a hassle because one cell is dying, but if you charge it, it works, but it has high self-drain and all these things. My Trek is now exhibiting, even though its power unit was bought new, I want to say 6 or 7 years ago, probably 6 years ago, it's exhibiting the exact same symptoms. So now both of my Campy bikes, they don't shift well. Or they don't hold as good a charge as they do. And I don't really go on, days without charging, and I will hit the mode button to check, and if it's flashing red, definitely not going out on that, but yellow is all right, maybe I'll switch. But it is really, it's gotten really annoying now, and this is what so many EPS users are experiencing. You can, just trying to find a V3 battery it's painful. You just can't do it. V4s won't work with V3 systems. It was intentionally, and in my mind, stupidly made incompatible, because now we've got all these dying bikes out there. So I really want to get this project to a near complete state, probably by April-ish. So yeah, it's going to be my main free time focus. I am considering one more thing. With both the bikes really kind of one on their last leg and one with a severe wound now, I've been thinking about maybe I should have designed it kind of in the way that some of these companies have, where they have basically their power unit and controls 2 derailleurs, or at least powers them. In this case, it would control them. It's really easy to take that design, make it a little longer, add another motor driver and another port for another shifter, and then I have a replacement. If I'm doing that, though, I could very well just make a full power unit replacement. At this point, it's significantly less work, because reverse engineering that bus protocol, and then, people would just snip off all the wires and you just plug them into another power unit that would give you compatibility and all these new features. That's very, very easy for me to do. So I'm considering that. I'm only considering it because it's easier for me to redesign and build hardware than it is to deal with all the Bluetooth pairing, and that's the really difficult part that I'm finding with this, is because you want to be able to put them in pairing modes and find each other. And if you want to use an app, I don't write apps. I had I'd have to find someone to write an app for this, and for a project that I'm not ever going to sell. Yeah, I don't really want to do that. So that's what I've been considering. That's kind of the state of the project, but hopefully a few more updates. Most people will have known Commander sales have stopped long ago. I have a video, or it'll probably be like 5 videos that I recorded months back on that. I'll probably have them come out over the next few weeks or months. And I also want to touch on a couple of failed projects that I built and just was too scared to go to tooling and just didn't launch them. And considering my life changes over the last year, I think I made the right call. Hopefully you learned something, and hopefully I'll be able to keep these bikes going along for a nice long while, because I don't really feel motivated to spend $6,000 on a new group set right now. Twice. All right, take care.